Hello and welcome back to the You Are the Program podcast. It is game week. We have 3 podcasts to bring you this week, and the first of which is our grand finale of the preview series, the grand finale of the preseason, the grand finale of 9 months of waiting for football. It is over. It is absolutely over. We saw some week 0 last week. We got Brian Lewerke, Tyler Higbee. Fellas, we have arrived, and it is time to do our Michigan State preview, Big Ten preview, and then later this week we'll be getting into Western Michigan, but we are only 4 days away from game day. How are we feeling?
Dante, I cannot be happier to stop talking about everyone else in the Big Ten. 1, and then also finally get to talk about Michigan State 2, and then finally get to talk about actual football that's happening this week, not just doing all these preview stuff for other Big Ten teams and any football in general. I'm happy to be able to actually talk about the Michigan State Spartans and be able to talk about a game that's going to happen on Friday. So I'm fired up.
Yeah, we made it. We made it through the dark days of summer. Football's finally back. And, yeah, we had some week 0 football. Week 0 it was. It sure looked like a week zero game. I'm not going to complain. We had football back, but I'm excited to have some real games with some actual teams that are going to do something come December and January next year. So it's a good time to be a football fan. And quick shout out, you are a married man, Dante. Congratulations. It was a great weekend celebrating the Rosanos.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it was good to see you guys. I mean, it's honestly, and Brian, I'm sure you felt like this at your wedding, and Tyler, when your wedding eventually is, it is like the craziest 24 hours, just because I felt like I was with you guys the whole time, but then also I look back today or yesterday and I was like, I don't know how many words actually on Saturday I spoke to you guys besides out on the dance floor just doing whatever. So
yeah,
a lot of fun. We saw a couple of our friends come in, a couple of our old teammates. It was a lot of fun. In the groom suite, actually, I was watching some of that week 0 game. I saw the first 2 drives. I saw 3-and-out punt, muff, recovery inside the 10. I looked away for 2 seconds. All of a sudden, Iowa State's on the 1, and then they fumbled. So I don't know what was going on. Didn't watch the snap the rest of the day.
We're trying to run a toss on 2nd and goal. With a steady downpour.
Looks like Texas back in the college football playoff last year. Same thing.
Anyways, let's get into Michigan State, and this has been the one that we've been waiting for a long time. And I honestly think this is probably the most prepared we've been for a preview pod of Michigan State, because I wouldn't even say it's more, I don't know if it's preparation or what kind of has led us to this point, but I do feel like there's some sort of vibe that's coming out of East Lansing this camp. A year 2 of a coaching staff shouldn't be stunning that the coaching staff feels like they're in a better place. But I just kind of want to kick it around the room to you guys to start. And what has kind of been the biggest thing that, not that we're hearing, but that we kind of in between the lines seeing, and maybe it is stuff that you're actually hearing beat reporters talk about or quotes that are coming out. What has kind of been the one thing that you have seen throughout this fall camp and leading up to week 1 that has kind of caught your attention, or that you're going to be watching for in week 1 before we get into the preview?
Yeah, I mean, I think I haven't heard anything specific from anyone, nothing crazy, but I think the receiver room, maybe it's kind of an obvious answer, but the receiver room is something that's being talked about in camp. It could be our best group of receivers that we've had in a little bit. Obviously, with a couple transfers coming in and Nick Marsh coming back, that'll be something I'm definitely looking at come Friday. See what they're able to do, whatever, and how they're able to produce with another year under Aiden Childs' belt to work with these guys in the offseason and get a full camp with them. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do.
There's a couple of things I'm excited about. First being the media team. They've been on fire.
Yes.
And I think I'm a little biased, but I mean, we have easily one of the best media teams in the country, definitely the Big Ten. So shout out to them. They've been on fire. That video they released today with Thunderstruck.
Yep.
Yeah,
they got the juices going a little bit.
Yeah.
I ditto what you say about the receivers, Brian. This is definitely the best receiving core we've had since What do you guys think? 21? I mean,
Easily 21, but I mean, we have to see the production that comes out of it. I feel like it could potentially be even better, but 21 is hard to top. I mean, 21 is very hard to top.
I'm also excited to see the secondary. I know there's been some chatter about the secondary throughout camp, even spring ball, how they're quote unquote legit. So we'll see. I mean, if the receivers and DBs and safeties and all that are going at it during camp, best on best, I'm expecting great things. So we'll see. We'll see Friday night.
The one thing before we get into the preview that's stuck out to me, and I feel like the coaches have been talking about it, it's not even necessarily position specific, although there is some of that that's baked in there, is kind of the depth that the coaching staff has talked about a little bit. And we know it going through last year, how much that depth was tested right out the gate. You know, you got some guys injured on the offensive line, then all of a sudden Raheem Johnson as a true freshman is kicking out to tackle, and who knows how often he did that in high school. But not just along the offensive line, they bolstered the depth. But to your point, Tyler, in the secondary as well, it seems like through guys they've added in the portal, through guys that have played last year, they just seem to be a lot more confident in their depth. Now, is that going to pan out this year? Obviously, we'll see. But I do feel like the coaches at least feel like they're in a good spot to where one injury and one position group's not going to sink the boat on that side, or two injuries, you know, they can still keep afloat. Obviously, any school in the country, if you lose 2, 3, 4 guys, it's going to kill you. But that's kind of been the one thing that I feel like the coaches have been boasting. And it's going to be interesting to see going into this year. So without any further ado, let's first touch on last year. Just a little bit. Don't want to harp on it too much, but obviously coming off a 5-7 year last year, the end of the year was so bad that I almost forgot that Rutgers game was for a bowl game. Like if we won that game, we were going to a bowl game, and it just didn't seem like that at all. Like thinking of my memories and thinking back to how I was watching that game, and it was just downhill so quickly. Obviously, there was a lot that played in that, injuries, right? Kind of how the schedule broke. And I think that team just kind of broke down. But even Aiden Childs, I remember talking at the end of the year last year, talking about how that locker room and maybe there weren't guys in there that wanted to be there. And so that's the thing that I kind of remember from last year, more than even just that Rutgers game being for bowl eligibility, and we just lay a complete egg.
I feel like you have typically a really good memory of the previous season, and the fact that you don't remember it kind of speaks volumes, because I don't have a great memory, and I don't remember much of what happened last season, especially the end of the season when, obviously, like you said, I kind of forgot that we were vying for a bowl bid too. So obviously you want to improve off of that, and kind of forget about it a little bit. And we've had time to do that this entire offseason. This is the start of a new season, a new team, fresh bodies, hopefully getting their body back, coming out of camp. So I don't know. I'm definitely hoping for an improvement, and hoping for a little bit more of a care and a remembrance from us come December.
Yeah, like you said, Dante, injuries definitely played a part in it, but the way they lost that game to Rutgers, trying to get to a bowl game, it was disappointing to see. A lot happened that last season, and for that to finish like that was really just disappointing. And if we're in that same position this year, I hope not. I think we'd all agree that would be a disappointing season, maybe getting ahead of myself for later in the episode. But if we're in the same position this year, not good. Not good.
No, not at all. And Brian, or someone, can someone pull up the betting odds for Michigan State? Because let's dive into this season. And as these betting odds are getting pulled up right now, you're going to see a big number towards the Big Ten winner. But I just want to preface this by saying, like, at least my expectation this year, and we'll have expectations down below. But before I even get into the over/under, as I'm projecting on this over/under, the biggest thing that I want to have going into this year is expectation. I don't know if that's 9 wins, 10 wins. That's not my expectation, but we've talked about it. It was the Indiana podcast. We just talked about the Rutgers game. I cannot stand to have another year where we're talking about some of these games, Rutgers, Indiana, where we're just uncompetitive in. Like, we have to have bigger expectations. And so if there's games where we don't play as good, I don't want to be as glass half full kind of guy. Like there needs to be expectations on this program. And I think the way that this season is kind of led up and the preseason is led up, there should be expectations on this team. So without any further ado, the betting info on Michigan State is over under 5.5 wins. I think it's minus 120 or 30 to over. So it's a little more expected to go over. Big Ten championship winner, as I said, plus 100,000. College football.
Throw a dollar on it. Why not?
Yeah, put a buck on that one. Why not? Then to get to the college football playoff, plus 1,800. So where are we at? Let's just only focus on the over-under. The rest of that obviously would be great, but over-under 5.5 wins. Where are we at?
I mean, I think that's a decent line if you're an odds maker. Obviously, we don't love that. And it seems so low, like 5.5 points or 5.5 wins. It seems like it's kind of there. It's like you're betting basically for Michigan State to make a bowl game. And I was going through the schedule, and we'll talk about this later at the end of the Michigan State preview, but I was going through the schedule, and it could be a very realistic scenario where they are at 5 wins come the last game of the season. They got to win to make a bowl game. So obviously I would like for this to go over. I wouldn't be shocked if it did. I could also see 8 wins. So I don't know. I would lean towards the over on this, but I don't know.
I would definitely lean over simply based on the fact about how they start the season. I mean, you fully expect to go 3-0 to start the season. We talked about it. Hopefully you split one with Nebraska and USC.
Yep.
And then you got to find 2 more wins the rest of the year. And I think that's likely. I'm not going to say who it's against because we don't really know how good the rest of the Big Ten is going to be. But I like the over, even if it's 6-6. That's the over. That's a bowl game, and we go from there.
Yeah, it seems like it, and I really like us. I know it was a lot of work for us to go through all 9 conference games, but going through all of the conference games, how many of those podcasts did we record and we talked about the teams, like the high end and the low end of them? You know, I can think of Iowa, Minnesota, UCLA, Nebraska, Indiana, like all these teams we think could win 8 games, but it's just that middle part of the Big Ten that seems so wide open. There's how many teams at 5 over and under of 5.5, and then there's some at 6.5, 7.5, right? There's really that tier of like the 3 elite Big Ten teams, and then you kind of have Indiana, Michigan in there who I still think are winnable games. When I look at the schedule, and I think we've talked about it a little bit, is there's not as many outside of Penn State unwinnable games. Like I don't know another one that I look on the schedule and I'm thinking automatic loss, but there's not also as many games where I'm looking besides maybe Maryland that are automatic wins, right? So you absolutely have to start the season 3-0. I expect us to, especially that Boston College game. I remember I made a tweet about what's kind of the most pivotal game of the season. And some people were saying Boston College. Like in my mind, if we lose that Boston College game week 2, it's a big uphill climb.
You're going to find out about this team pretty quickly.
Right.
If we lose that
game. That's kind of the marker there. And then if you can get another one of those road games early on. But I'm over, like I said, my big thing is going to be expectations on this team this year, because I think we need to have expectations. This program deserves to have expectations. And I just want that to keep rolling. So over under talked about. Now let's go into the actual team, because we haven't seen as much, but this is one of those cases. I think, Brian, you had sent us the article from ESPN talking about the returning production, and I believe Michigan State was in the top 5 in the conference.
Yeah, 3rd or 4th, I would say.
Yeah, they're 4th, 66% coming back.
Yeah.
So you return a lot of production. You look at what they did in the transfer portal on the offensive line, at receiver. There's a lot to get excited about. And that's where, I kind of base this 5-7, this over under, and looking at it and trying to preface it and saying the expectation for this team needs to be higher because they did return. You return an offensive coordinator, you return a head coach, you return a quarterback that's in the same system. You return your best receiver, your best weapon in Nick Marsh, and you have Jack Belling, and then you add to it. So offensively, let's start on that side of the ball, because this is, I think, where the team's going to have the most expectation in terms of what this unit's going to be. I just kind of want to start off with storylines and really start on the offensive line at first, because it's felt like since 2021 we haven't had a good offensive line, and it's been back since. I mean, even when we were there, we had some solid offensive lines, but like, when's the last time we really had a good offensive line? It was probably 2015. I mean, that was a very good offensive line. You had a first round draft pick on it, but this group is returning guys that have a lot of guys that have played, and they added to it. So, Higby, why don't you kick us off offensive line wise, being our resident hog molly up front?
Yeah, you talked about 2021. I mean, back when we started this podcast, I remember every week we're talking keys to victory, and I'm always saying the O-line, and every week I feel like they let me down. Every time I'd say the O-line, it wasn't great. And I really like the additions they made this year. You talked about the production coming back. You got guys that have been there, kind of done that, and then you add some guys like Matt Gilbin, named a captain, and we have in the notes here. I mean, he was named a captain, and that says a lot for and for a transfer O lineman to be named a team captain. That's big. So obviously, guys trust him, they listen to him, but for him to be also one of the best players on the team, that's a good sign. That means, I mean, they're hopefully taking the steps in the right direction, and the four other guys next to him will follow suit.
Yeah, I think as far as the offensive line goes, I mean, there's not a week that you go into the week saying like this is the most important position. Like, I think the offensive line is like the most important position group for the offense, like going into every single game. Like, they have to be the guys that dominate up front. They set the tone. They're leading the charge for all the guys. Nothing gets done without them. You could have a great offensive line and poor skill players, and you'll probably still be pretty solid. But if you have great skill players and a poor offensive line, you're not going to be able to do much. So I think it really does start up front with them, and they got to be able to produce. And I think it helps a lot having a guy that transfers in that is going to be a captain this year. So it's obviously a good sign. Looking forward to that.
What do you think is up front? I would say the biggest improvement that we need to make from last year, because I feel like our biggest thing last year was we were continually in those times where we'd have a run play for 3-4 yards, but then it's not just a sack. We gave up a ton of sacks last year, but it was the negative run plays or just the unproductive run plays. And that is really the biggest thing that I'm looking for this year is, to have it's one thing to have a middle of the road offensive line, and that would seem like a huge step up from what we've had the past 2-3 years. But it's just the consistency of the offensive line play. And I know, Brian, we talked a little bit about when we were texting back and forth maybe a week ago. I think a comment came out from one of the coaching staff that they were looking at 10 guys in the playing rotation, right? So how does that kind of factor into the offensive line equation up front? Do you see that as a good thing, or do you see it as a bad thing? Because I feel like that's something that coaches are always trying to harp on, especially with the offensive line, is keep guys fresh, keep your bodies fresh, get guys experience. But what do you typically prefer? Is it early season, bigger rotation, and they start to find their groove and gel, and then they go along from there? But what kind of is that biggest thing that you're looking for on the offensive line, whether it's consistency, keeping guys fresh? What is it?
I meof think it's great. Maybe Higby can speak on being fresh a little more than I can, but I think it's great to have continuity as far as it comes to the offensive line, kind of having the same guys. I mean, it's great to be able to throw in some new guys every once in a while, but you got to have continuity up front, and maybe you rotate some guys a little more than what you would in the first game. And then also, just to speak real quick on as far as we're able to run the ball 3 or 4 yards consistently, and then we have like a negative 3-yard loss. I don't think that's all on the offensive line, and I don't think it was last year as well. Some of the run plays are a little more slow developing or a little more of an obvious run situation. So I think that also is on the back of the offensive coordinator, maybe even Aiden Childs, to get out of a play if it's clearly not there. So I think it takes a little more than just the offensive line just being big and physical up front, and those to be more consistent. It takes also the play calling and the quarterback doing the right thing. So
I'm kind of with you when it comes to being fresh and continuity. Yes, it was nice to get a series off, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you have the starting five, they start building some continuity with each other. If they play 80, 85% of the snaps and they get a series off, like there's the sixth man or seventh man rotating in there throughout the game just for a series or two. That's great. But I want this starting five. I want the five dudes playing together 85, I'm going to say 90% of the time. To try to keep a little fresh, but as an O-lineman, you just got to go. You're going to play 50, 60, 70 snaps a game. That's what you sign up for. So I'm not really worried about you being fresh. That's what training camp's for. So I'd like to see these guys playing out there majority of the snaps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think consistency, that's what I've talked about with that offensive line. Just for awareness, Michigan State last year in PFF, their ranking FBS offensively was 102 with an EPA per play in offense of -0.5. So that your success and EPA is a big success metric. So I mean, if you're in the negatives there, and obviously being ranked 100, you are not in a good spot. And it's just that continuity that needs to build, and it's that success that needs to build. If you're having a big play, one down, you can't be having two more rushing, negative rushing yard plays or sacks or anything like that. So consistency is going to be the big thing with this offensive line. But let's pivot this over to Aiden Childs, because this is going to be the biggest question mark and outside of the receivers, because I want that to be our last topic that we hit on. But with Aiden Childs in specific, Brian, what is it that you want to see out of him more? This can be a down-to-down thing. This can be overall. What is it more that you want to see out of him that he did not show last year?
I mean, I think physically his accuracy with the football, that was kind of a clear mark. I don't remember the exact number that his completion percentage was, but I know it was in like the low 50s. So obviously that's not great. You want to be able to complete your passes and get the ball rolling. But I think physically just being able to understand the defenses a little better and knowing with where he's going with the football. Obviously he can make the throws when he is accurate. He's very, very good. But he just needs to be able to know what to do in the right situation, tuck the ball and run if need be. Obviously we've seen him do that plenty of times. So just fix that, and just be a film junkie, be in the room, studying the defense, know what they're going to run before they run what they do. So that's just kind of the two main things I think I want to see from him.
I'm definitely with you. It felt like at times there was just a lot of confusion from him. Like he didn't really understand what the defense was doing. So I really just for him to, I mean, I don't even know if it was just basic stuff, what it was really for him, but just to understand basics. Like, yes, I'm sure he knows cover 2, cover 3, when it's man covers, that type of stuff. But even just defenses try to trick you. That's what they want to do. They want to make you think it's coming from over here, but it's really coming from over here. So that goes with passing. That goes with picking up blitzes. He can help the O-line in that sense, but just making the easy throws. We saw flashes last year. He can make some of the best throws in the conference, but the turnovers and then just the accuracy at times was an issue. So I'd love to see him clean that up.
I feel like it's a big thing of clarity when he comes to the line of scrimmage, right? Brian, you just talked about getting him out of a play, or Tyler, you just talked about recognizing a coverage, right? It's when he comes to the line of scrimmage, seeing what's going on around him, but then also being able to diagnose that in his head and understand, all right, well, this is the look they're giving me, or this is the front they're giving me. This is what we want to get into. Or when he knows he has a pass play or checks into something, I just want to see confidence and clarity from him, because Brian, you talked about it, I feel like, a lot early season last year in terms of recognizing what he's seeing on that side of the ball. I think that's going to be his biggest progression. I know the new quarterbacks coach that they brought in, blanking on the name right now, this year, that's kind of been the biggest thing that he talked about in the spring, at least. We haven't seen as much about it in fall camp, but that's kind of the biggest thing that I had seen that he was trying to develop with Aiden Childs was understanding what he's seeing and knowing what's best for him. But for me, it's limiting the shoot yourself in the foot mistakes that you don't need to play, because Tyler, you said he can make every throw out there. You've seen so many across the hash 15-yard outs or comebacks that are impressive throws, or even that throw to Nick Marsh in the Indiana game where he's scrambling out to the right and puts it on a dot. It's
saw
those
that on
throws.
the timeline today on Twitter. Man, that was
So
the
good.
thing. Went up 10-0 against Indiana and then outscored what, 42-0?
Yeah, something like that.
Nice.
But he can make every single throw in the book. Now I just want to see the maturation process from him to understand he doesn't have to do this. And you talked about his legs. Utilize those things. When you talked about it when you were a sophomore, junior, Brian, in terms of trying to make yourself a pocket passer while also realizing that you can make 1 or 2 reads and then quickly make that decision to use your legs and just make a positive play or even throw the ball away. That's where we saw him get into trouble last year. I was trying to pull up a tweet that I had sent out on our Twitter account, our X account, earlier this year. And in games 1 through 6 last year, so the first half of the year, he was at 56% completion percent, 202 yards, pass yards per game, 5 touchdowns and 8 interceptions through his first 6 games. Then the remainder of the season, he was 62% pass completion, 200 pass yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So that kind of just goes to talk about the steady climb that he maybe made decision-making wise. Obviously those aren't eye-popping at all, passing yardage numbers, but in terms of decision-making, kind of seeing where he's at, trying not to make a superhero play or taking care of the ball a little bit better. I feel like he made a little bit of improvement, but he's going to have to continue to improve that. And now let's transition into the weapons that he's got, because this is the biggest thing. And Brian, you talked about it right out the gate in terms of the receiver room that has been talked about pretty much all camp. It's been the biggest thing that's been talked about through this coaching staff when they're talking to the media, is just how impressive this receiver room has been. You return Nick Marsh, you bring in Amari Kelly, you bring in Krishan McCray, who's been, it sounds like, banged up a little bit during camp. And they brought in a couple other guys that seem to be pushing Krishan McCray for that third receiver spot. So it's not just the top 2 highlighted guys of Nick Marsh and Amari Kelly. The well seems to be deep at the receiver position. And this is what Brian Lindgren has to be able to weaponize, is getting the ball in these receivers' hands, making things very easy on Aiden Childs. I had put out a tweet last week wanting to see Lindgren take some pressure off of Childs and do things to get the ball in the playmakers' hands early on. So this receiver group, we're really, really excited about. Brian, what would you like to see out of this receiver group besides just incredible production, great catches? What is it that you need to see out of this receiver group? How we use them? What is it that you're most intrigued about?
One, I'm excited to see Aiden Childs with hopefully will be a plethora of good receivers and good talent on the outside. I would love to see a little Ben Johnson-esque from Brian Lindgren. I don't know if he's still loved by you Lions fans anymore, but I would love to see. Not really.
He just says some stuff that's just
He does seem like a little bit of an odd child, but I would love to see some creativity in how they get these receivers the ball. Because you always see like creative offensive coordinators be able to do stuff with like a quarterback, I guess in Jared Goff's situation, that isn't very mobile and can't do much else besides sit in the pocket and throw. But I would love to see like what an offensive coordinator can do with good weapons and a guy that can like also escape and make plays, and just kind of keep it within the system as far as getting those receivers the ball. But if something breaks down, like get out and go do whatever you got to do. So I would love to see a good schemed up for these wide receivers where they're able to take advantage of their size, their speed, their skill, whatever it may be, and create some big play opportunities in the passing game.
I think it was Urban Meyer or Ryan Day. It was one of the Ohio State coaches that talked about when he knew he had good receivers, getting them the ball in a variety of different ways can just get them kickstarted, whether it is a jet sweep, whether it is a pop pass or a screen or just something to where you get them the ball and you just let them go for a little bit. You don't have to have the quarterback make any reads, just get the ball into their hands. So that I agree.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I mean, I was going to say, even if it's just a jet sweep or like a little swing screen or wide receiver tunnel screen, just getting the playmakers the ball, let them make guys miss. Just get them the ball, easy throws for Childs, easy catches for these receivers, and let them go make a play. We don't need to – yes, the home run ball will come. Yes, we want to see that. We want to see the deep over or whatever the crazy throws is Childs will make. But just give him some easy throws to make, easy routes for the receivers to run and go make a play. I just want to see that.
Couldn't agree more. Who do you think – this is one that I didn't prepare you guys for. Who do you think will lead the team in receiving yards, and who do you think will lead the team in touchdowns? We haven't even talked about Jack Velling yet either.
I would love to see, like, we were all very high on Jack Velling last year, and it didn't really pan out. I would love to see him get a little bit more production. I'm
he should be helped by the receivers too that are on 100%. The outside.
Yeah. But he also could be hurt if all of our receivers are so good we just go four wides every time. Probably won't do that, but I think Nick Marsh is probably going to be the leader in yards and touchdowns.
You think both?
I do.
Okay.
I was going to say Marsh for touchdowns, Amari Kelly for yards. That's my pick.
I agree. I think Marsh is going to get so much of the attention coming off of here, and maybe that's just early season too, right? If he gets a ton of the attention and this coaching staff knows what they have in the other weapons between Velling, between McCray, between Kelly, I think there's a big window for Nick Marsh to be a huge red zone target, but especially early on in the season, I do think Amari Kelly is going to be kind of that gadget guy. Yes, you can use Nick Marsh in that way. Yes, you can use any of those other guys in that way. But I agree with you, Tyler. I'm right there with you. I got Amari Kelly for receiving yards and Nick Marsh for touchdowns. He's just such a weapon in the red zone. So let's get to defense. Defensively, this team obviously struggled last year. We talked about the attrition that we had in the back end, but I think the biggest thing that everyone's looking for this year with this defense is the pass rush, because they went, was it 7 games?
Don't remind me.
Yeah, I didn't remember about, and I'm glad I didn't remember about it.
I was thinking about it before we started this, how many games it was, because we had the count going there for a while. We had to go back and check ESPN stats when the last sack was this defense got.
It was at least not 1 month. It was greater than 1 month that they went without a sack, and that is enough that needs to be said about that stat. Regardless, that is the single biggest thing that this defense needs to focus on, because we've talked about some positive things we've heard from the defensive backfield, but that doesn't matter if you can't get any type of pressure on the quarterback. So what is it that you think this team needs to do? Joe Rossi needs to do? Is it purely just development of your guys up front, or is it getting more creative? How can this defense create more pressure this year?
I don't know, because it's easy to say as a fan just to, throw more pressure out there and blitz a lot more and have those guys up front, just send 6 guys every time. But obviously it's tough in reality. You have less guys defending, obviously, the pass. And you don't want to just get blitz happy and start doing every time, because then you also become predictable. So I don't know. I mean, I think it kind of just comes down to the guys that you have on the outside, on those edge rushers, getting to the quarterback, and that's kind of something that you develop in the offseason. You get a little stronger, get a little bit faster, get a little better with your technique. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest thing, is getting those guys, those edge rushers, ready to go on the outside.
I think Rossi was a little limited last year in what he was able to do between all the injuries and the guys that had to end up playing. He probably didn't trust them as much as the guys that were starting at the beginning of the year. So you're kind of limited in what you are able to do with the front 7. Like you said, Brian, it's nice to be able to say, like, yeah, let's get more creative. But if you don't trust the guys in the back end to be able to do that, if they're just going to get burnt every time you bring pressure, that really handcuffs you as a defensive coordinator. So I think we've talked about the secondary. If they are what people have been saying they are, I think it's a lot more likely that Rossi is more aggressive, a little more exotic in his blitzes and everything he wants to do. But it definitely helps. The secondary seems to be much improved. So it kind of frees up Rossi and the rest of the defensive staff to be able to create more pressures, and it doesn't put as much pressure on the D-line to get sacks if you have guys that can cover on the back end.
I think you nailed it right there, because I do think that he was hamstrung big time by the personnel that was in there. And it's not, and I don't say personnel in terms of they can't play, but the amount of communication, checks, stuff that you have to do on a defense when a blitz is called to make sure when there's motion, something's got to happen, right? And so the communication's got to go from a true freshman corner to another true freshman safety to a nickel. There's so much that's got to happen across the board, especially when you're talking about creating pressure, and if you want him to have more exotic blitzes, if you want him to, it all works together. And I always feel like I always say this defensively, but the defensive backs are aided by the pressure that's created up front, right? And the pressure that's created up front aids the defensive backs, vice versa. And I think Joe Rossi probably took a good long look at, why that was. And I think there was some personnel stuff, but I think also some of it he internalized, and I've seen him talk about it a little bit. Obviously he's not give away what they've changed, but it does sound like they've changed a little bit. But I think it's going to be personnel driven. You can't have 4 or 5 new guys in that back end and expect them to throw creative, exotic looks and rely on these corners to be able to make adjustments, rely on safeties to be able to make adjustments that help you. So I do think through offseason changes, you add some depth, you add guys that you feel good about on the back end. It should allow Joe Rossi to free up at least what he wants to do in terms of pressure. I think he's going to have to get creative with it and be a little bit more aggressive at it. But that all comes from your confidence in the back end. So agree with you completely there. Now let's go to the linebacker grouping, because this group returns 0 starters from last year. They only played 2 full-time linebackers, Cal Halliday and Jordan Turner, who was a very, very good player. I wish I would have seen him on a good defense for the Spartans. But in steps Jordan Hall, and I think he's going to be the most important person on this defense. He's a third-year guy. He played and flashed his true freshman year, didn't play as much last year. This defense is his. And Joe Rossi's going to lean a lot on him, and everything that you've seen from the guy, any quotes you see from him. He was at Big Ten Media Day. He seems like the real deal, and we've seen him put it on the field in glimpses. But now the show is his, and he's going to be the most important part of this defense.
Yeah, I think it obviously all starts with the linebacking core and having a guy, in this case, probably Jordan Hall, that is going to be able to take control of this defense. There obviously aren't a lot of big names coming back and with the linebacker position, so it's going to take one guy, a couple guys that are really dedicated, Jordan Hall, to learning this defense and making sure they know what everyone else around them is doing, and kind of being the leader and getting everyone right and making sure that this is the unit that controls everything. So you got to be able to be in sync with everyone and be able to communicate that to all the other guys as well.
Wasn't Jordan Hall, I think you said it, Dante, beginning of last year, maybe the year prior, but you were really high on him a year or so ago.
It was when he was playing as a true freshman. I mean, the
Yeah.
team didn't have a lot to look forward to, but I was very, very excited about him as a true freshman, because that's a hard spot to come in and play physically, but also the speed of it. So it was 2 years ago, and he didn't really do much last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned that he didn't get to play a whole lot, but I feel like when he did play, he again showed flashes. So really excited for him to finally get the reins of this defense and really be the focal point for this defense. And it's a guy you can build around. I mean, seems like he's a guy you can trust to be in the right spot, communicate well, and just get the guys lined up where they're supposed to be. Do we think it's a big year for Darius Snow as well. He's a guy that came in pretty highly recruited, had a nasty injury. Was it last year, 2 years ago?
2 years ago. It was he was still coming back
That's right.
I don't think he was still even 100% last year.
Yeah. And he was in the portal briefly too, wasn't he? And then decided to come back.
Yep.
So I don't know if he'll be more of a nickel guy or if he's a true linebacker type. We'll see. But it could be a big year for him too.
That's what I like about this linebacker group, is the versatility that I believe they are going to be able to play with a little bit more this year. As productive as Cal Halliday was in the run game, he struggled in the pass game. And I do think that having Jordan Hall, he's a better coverage guy. You don't want to rely on him solo anywhere. But, in offenses in 2025, you're playing in Oregon, you're playing at Penn State. Everyone can scheme stuff up to get your worst defender on their maybe not their best receiver, but an advantageous matchup, whether it's running back coming out of the backfield or a tight end they feel good about. I remember the Oregon game specifically. I think they split someone out against Cal Halliday and just absolutely cooked. But with Darius Snow, with Jordan Hall and Wayne Matthews, who played a little bit last year, he was a transfer. I think he's going to be the other starter next to Jordan Hall. I do believe that this linebacker group can be productive, but also versatile, because whether Darius Snow is playing out at the nickel and be a big nickel and some more run heavy looks, or whether they want to bring him in to replace Jordan Hall or Wayne Matthews, I do think they can be a little bit more versatile this year. So the linebacker group I'm really excited about, looking forward to. With all of that said, we've covered offense, defense. I did want to do 2 minutes on special teams because we lost a very important piece of the special teams unit last year. Jonathan Kim will no longer be kicking for us. And it seems like, and it sounds like, based on what Jonathan Smith said today, both kickers that were vying for the starting kicking job suffered injuries in camp. And one of them is a game time decision. The other is out. So we got a little bit of a predicament in our hands. I think 2 weeks ago, I went on Sheehan's podcast and was talking about how confident I was in the special teams unit. That was before I knew that the kickers were all hurt.
Dante, there's nothing more that I hate than a team, especially if you're like not a very good team, that has a bad special teams, because you just look like an absolute crap show out there. And I'm not saying whatsoever that we will be. And I don't really care who the kicker is. Get one of these guys healthy and let them make some field goals. But it can't be something. And I do think we're past the whatever his name was from 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. I don't even remember. That was not
the Indiana kick.
Huh?
The Indiana kick.
No, the special teams coordinator.
Oh yeah. I've forgotten his name as well, and don't even want to try to remember.
I don't even want to remember that distant memory. But I don't have much to say about the special teams except for just to do your job, make the kicks, make the tackles, don't snap it high.
I'm hoping it's just soft tissue stuff. Well, I'm not really hoping. I just hope for their sake that it wasn't like a freak accident in practice. It was a more controlled setting. Maybe it's a groin or a hamstring or something that they can work their way back from. Because 2 kickers getting hurt during fall camp, it's not a great look, for being honest. But we'll see. But punting-wise, we should be in good shape. Eckley making the second team, preseason All-American team. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, I think. But punting, we should be in good shape. Hopefully this first week or 2 weeks don't come down to a field goal.
What about the long snapper situation? Because the end of last year,
Dante, you'll be able to attest to this. Like, how much? I know you weren't a punter, but I mean, I'll be honest. When it came down to any special teams that weren't field goal, I kind of just zoned out. It's like, how much will a bad snap, even if it's off by a couple inches, affect the whole operation?
It's not even that. Well, yeah, the inches and all of that stuff. It's a timer, right? And I remember when we were always in punt periods, they're clicking the timer, and there was a certain, I wanted to say it was like 4-2 operation. And when I say operation,
get off time,
that snap to when the ball's off the foot, right? And after the Michigan game last year, when our long snapper gets hurt, like I said, I think the average, or what you want to be at, somewhere around 4, I think. It had to have been in the 5s, because the long snaps that went back there were just absolute ducks. They like floated back there. They were floaters. I mean, it was insane. And that is such a penalty for the punt unit, because you give rushers an entire another second to get there. And a second for someone to get 15 yards, 12 yards is a lot of time. So my justification on Sheehan's podcast for why I thought the special teams unit was going to be big before I knew that the kickers were going to be hurt. I thought this unit was going to take a step because the return game, we talked about the receivers and how electric we think they might be. I think you can have a better return game. You return a long snapper that can hopefully, keep your times low. You have Eckley. The only question mark was the kicking game, and obviously that's become a bigger issue. So don't want to belabor that much. It's just going to obviously be a point, especially as we talk about the Western podcast. Let's get into now our predictions, expectations, because we want to hit the Big Ten a little bit. That'll probably be 15, 20 minutes. Let's get into our record predictions this year for Michigan State and our expectations. So, Brian, how about you lead us off here? Record predictions for the Spartans this year.
I'm going to say 7-5. I think we win some of those close games with some of the mid to top tier Big Ten teams. Which I think that could be Minnesota. Iowa, possibly Indiana, possibly Nebraska. So I think we eke out a couple wins in those games. We lose some of the ones that I think we will lose, such as the Penn State, and maybe even a couple games that we shouldn't really lose. So I think 7.5 would be good. It really just comes down to all those Big Ten teams that are kind of in the middle of the pack that could win 5, could win 8. We just got to be the one that wins 8 and win the close games and don't lose a turnover battle more times than you win it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I talked about us the first 3 games. You start 3-0. I'd give us USC, and I'm kind of previewing ahead to our Big Ten preview, but I think USC is going to be not great. I think Lincoln Riley's going to have a tough go at it getting. I know he has a hell of a buyout, but I think he's going to have a hell of a time getting another year at USC.
He'll be laughing all the way to the bank with that buyout.
Hey, you know what? Good for him. But I think 7-5 is pretty realistic. I mean, maybe because I'm a homer somewhat, that's maybe not as realistic for some other people, but 7-5, if you win a couple close games, maybe 8-4, but I think 7-5 is a good safe bet. And that really should be the minimum expectation for this team and this coaching staff.
Completely agree. Minimum expectation 7-5, and that's where I'm going. But my record prediction is 8-4. I think we start off 3-0. Like I said, to me, it's not even a negotiable that you have to start 3-0. Like, that's my expectation. I'll be severely disappointed if you do not. And obviously, that pretty much all hinges on the Boston College game. But this team's got to take a step. We talked about the returning production. We talked about the ads in the transfer portal that seem like very good, very smart ads. Obviously, you have to maintain health. But I think that's the big thing that this coaching staff has been projecting is the depth that they've added. Obviously, you can't withstand 2, 3, 4 injuries to a position group. But if you get one or two guys nicked up here or there, I think they'll be all right. But 8-4, my expectation is for this team to beat some of the teams that we've talked about. I think the schedule is gettable. It might not be as easy as some schedules could be in the Big Ten, but it's gettable. You don't have as many obvious losses. And I think you should be able to beat the UCLAs, the Marylands pretty handily. And then you're talking about finding 3 between USC, Nebraska, UCLA, Indiana, Minnesota, and Iowa. And I think you can do that. I think you have a receiving group and an offense that has the potential to be one of the better groups in the Big Ten. I don't know if they'll reach the top 3 to 5, but even being at a 6, 7, or an 8 is a huge step from last year. So I got 8-4. That's my expectation. I think, Tyler, you hit it. The expectation, at least on this coaching staff, should be to go 7-5. We can't be talking about fighting for a bowl bid week 12 again.
I'll add this. I'm not going to be disappointed. I mean, obviously, I'll be like kind of sad, but I'm not going to be like upset or disappointed if we lose Boston College. But if we do, we have to win both USC and Nebraska, which just is pretty tough to do.
There just has to be like resolve, I feel like. And to your point, like, yeah, I'd be upset in the moment, but it can't go like last year did in terms of getting blown out at home by Indiana and Rutgers. Like, there has to be resolve in this group. And that's where, Aiden Childs said at the end of last year, there was guys that didn't seem like they wanted to be in the locker room. Okay, well, you've said this is a great group. Everyone said this is a great group, great culture. Okay, well, put it on the field because, this fan base, honestly, has been built up over the last 3 years and not seen a lot of success. So give us something to cheer for.
Yeah.
All right. That is the complete wrap up of the Michigan State portion of this podcast. Again, we will be doing Western Michigan in, I think, 3 days here. We will be doing that live as well on YouTube. So please tune in. Before we end this, though, we wanted to do our quick Big Ten preview for what we have and what we see in the conference this year. I feel like we got a decent grasp on where we're at in the Big Ten with some of our preview podcasts. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through and give you a championship matchup and winner. We're going to give you the player of the year in the Big Ten, the coach of the year in the Big Ten, most disappointing team, surprise team, and worst team in the Big Ten. So without any further ado, Brian, do you want to go ahead and give us your championship matchup in the Big Ten?
I would love to. I think, spoiler alert, we all have the same one. I can see it right here. But
so let's just round table this one. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Penn State, Ohio State. I think those are clearly the two best teams in the league. Oregon has a lot of unknowns at quarterback, at a bunch of other positions. Ohio State always reloads. Penn State could be their year. So I think it's those two. I do think Ohio State wins the Big Ten though, because I think Penn State beats them in whatever week 5 or 6, whenever they play.
You're thinking about that 12-0 bet now, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, because that would basically mean they go undefeated. But then I think Ohio State gets back at him in the Big Ten championship and wins it. So,
well, you mentioned it. I think these two teams are. I'm not going to say far and away, but Oregon's the only other team I could really consider putting in this argument at the moment. I don't know who else I'd even think about putting them in. These are definitely the two best teams. I told you guys on the last episode, I think that I'm drinking the Penn State Kool-Aid this year. Even though it's big game James, I have them winning the Big Ten. He somewhat got the monkey off his back last year, winning in the playoffs, but I think this might be the year. I mean, we talked about who they have last week. I'm not going to get into it again, but that's my pick just because of what they have, and I don't trust what Ohio State is right now.
The only thing that scares me, Tyler, to your point, is having James Franklin in a one game to win the Big Ten, right? And I think them getting in the Big Ten championship is about as good of a bet or prediction you can make, or safe as one, especially with their schedule. And I think their floor is just so high, higher than a lot of these teams, higher than Ohio State. But once you get to the one game, they have to win this game. That's when the pressure's on. But I also said Penn State. Like I said, I think their floor is super high, and I'll talk about Ohio State in a little bit because I almost put them under another one of these categories. But I got Penn State. I think they across the board are the best team. It'll just come down to if their coach can do it in the big game. So let's go right into the Player of the Year in the Big Ten. Brian, who do you have?
I'm gonna ride the Ohio State. I know they could have a little bit of a national championship hangover, but if there's anything I know, don't ever count Ohio State out. Once you do, they will strike and they will be very good. So I think Jeremiah Smith is going to be that guy for Ohio State this year. If Julian Sayin can be half as good as what people think he is, then Jeremiah Smith is going to be the best receiver in the country. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it's between him and Ryan Williams, obviously, for the Blitnikoff. And I think it's Jeremiah Smith to lose, honestly. But my Player of the Year prediction is Nick Singleton. My only reservation with that is we talked about the two-headed monster that they have in the backfield, how many carries he's really going to get. I think he'll be productive with the carries he does get. But if they're trying to keep him fresh and trying to keep him fresh to the end of the season, he may not have the numbers that leads to a Player of the Year. That's my only concern with this, but right now I'm going with it.
You bring up a great point. I didn't necessarily even think about Katron Allen when I put this in. I am also going Nick Singleton, Player of the Year. I just think this Penn State team can maul people, but I mean they're going to have so many different options. Not only Katron Allen, but they could have a very good pass game as well. And we talked about their offensive coordinator and the different stuff that they do. So I'm going Nick Singleton. I think he's the best. Not the best player in the Big Ten. Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs are the best two players in the Big Ten, but outside of them, I think it's Nick Singleton. And I think he can get the ball a little bit easier and doesn't have a question of how he's getting the ball. I mean, I think Sayin's going to be good. I have some issues with Ohio State, but I'm going Nick Singleton. Coach of the Year in the Big Ten, Brian.
I don't think we're going to have a big surprise like we had with Coach Cignetti last year with any other random team. I think Ryan Day would have won it last year if – actually, they didn't make the Big Ten championships. Never mind. He wouldn't have won it last year. Take back what I said. But I do think Ryan Day is going to win it this year because I think they're going to win the Big Ten championship. So, yeah, Ryan Day.
Good logic. I like that.
Thank you.
We talked about it on the Nebraska review and how it's year 3 under Matt Rule, and everywhere he's kind of struck gold. And I'm kind of predicting that this year. Maybe a little bit of a surprise team to some is Nebraska this year, but we talked about it. The schedule sets up decently for them, and it's year 3 for Matt Rule. And I think, I mean, even if they don't win the Big Ten championship, if they go 10-2, even if they go 11-1 and don't make it, I mean, that's I feel like that's a pretty good argument for him to be coach of the year.
I also went Matt Rule. I almost put Nebraska in the Big Ten championship game. I think their schedule plays out well for them. I don't think they play Penn State or Ohio State, if I'm remembering correctly. I think they're going to make the playoff. I have a ticket on them to make the playoff, plus 600. I think 10-2 does it for them. So that's why I didn't put them in the Big Ten championship game. I think you're going to have to go 11-1 to get into the Big Ten championship game. So, but I think they're going to be a good team this year. They got a lot coming back. Makes a lot of sense with Holgerson and Raiola taking another step. So I got Matt Rule there. We talked about the year 3 jump. So
just had a refresher on their schedule real quick. You were right about it. I mean, their schedule, I said it sets up decently. It sets up tremendously for them to make a run. I mean, they play
Michigan early. They can get Michigan early. I think that's Michigan's first. Well, no, they play at Oklahoma, but first Big Ten road game.
Yeah. And then they don't play Ohio, or they don't play Penn State until second to last game of the season. So sets up real nice for them.
So they do play Penn State then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think 11-1's too tall of a task for them to get to the Big Ten championship game, but I do think they're going to be a good team this year, much improved. So, that we talked about it. I think that's going to be a tough one to get for Michigan State. I think it's going to be tougher to get than a USC game. But yeah, Matt Rule, coach of the year. All right, disappointing team. Finally, we have some variation in the most disappointing team here with 3 different answers. Brian, who are you going with here?
Yeah, I wanted to say Oregon, but I feel like that was a little bit maybe of like the obvious answer, just with a lot of uncertainty that they have. But I went with Illinois, and disappointing for Illinois, I guess, is a relative term because, I mean, they won 10 games last year, yes. I was looking at a stat. I think 3 or 4 of them were like very close. Like they could have easily been a 7-5 team. Yeah. So I don't think they returned to near as close success as 10 wins as what they had. Probably closer to 7 or 8. So
I kind of hinted at mine earlier, but I chose USC, and I mean, they haven't been great in a few years, and I feel like the expectations for USC are always, it kind of just depends on who you ask, honestly. And so, I mean, looking at this, we talked about their schedule, we talked about who they have coming back this year, but they have a 4-week stretch this year where they go to Illinois, Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska, and that's very easily could be 0-4. And if they go 0-4 in that stretch, who knows what they are leading up into those games. But I mean, if you go 7-5 this year, even if you go 6-6, does Lincoln Riley make it to another year?
Oh.
To me, that'd be a huge disappointment, especially if you ask any USC fan. Yeah. Like that's a huge disappointment.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe. And you talk about culture too. I mean, he's been there for 4 years now. 4 or 5.
So.
Yeah. I think this will be his 4th.
It's been
actually,
a minute.
This could be his 5th.
And to your point, with that stretch in the middle of the season, like that's what Michigan State hit that wall last year of, you have those tough stretches and all of a sudden those easier games that you forecast down the season, whether it's through attrition with guys getting hurt, when you just have kind of that gauntlet stretch, it makes the team question themselves a little bit. So that's a good pick, and that schedule is a gauntlet there in the middle, especially with adding Notre Dame into the middle of that. But I went Oregon. I think Dan Lanning might be one of the best coaches, if not the best pure coach in the Big Ten. I think Ryan Day's up there, obviously, but they always have, I feel like, a little bit better than talent than Oregon. They never seem to do it in the big game. I mean, we talk about big game James, but I mean, Oregon absolutely laid an egg in the Rose Bowl last year against Ohio State. So Dan Lanning might be on the watch for that. But, new quarterback Dante Moore could be very good. They lost some guys up front. They lost a couple receivers. They could have a good defense again this year, but I just see Oregon and taking a step back this year. There's a lot of question marks with them, and especially at the receiver position and that high-flying offense that they typically have. So I'm going Oregon.
I'm going to add a caveat, or not a caveat, another option that I didn't think of till now. Wisconsin could also be one of the most disappointing teams, not because of how bad they are, just about how brutal their schedule is.
Their strength of schedule at the moment is number 4.
Yeah.
They have, I mean, we talked about it. Their schedule is absolutely insane.
Yeah. They could be a good team for all we know, but they just aren't good enough to play as brutal of a schedule that they have.
They could be a good team that goes 4-8.
Yeah. So
I almost went Ohio State here as well for the same reasons that I just went Oregon. I mean, coming off the national championship, Brian, you talked about a little bit of national championship hangover. They also lost a lot up front on the offensive line. Replacing quarterback, they lost 2 NFL draft picks at running back. Like, they're losing a ton on that offense. You know, you still have – my only issue with that is I think they have the 2 best players in college football, Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. So I didn't go Ohio State there. All right. Last 2 categories of the day, surprise team and then worst team. So let's start with surprise team. I don't think Tyler's and I will be too much of a shock here, but Brian, you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Washington this year. I think Damon Williams, whatever, however you pronounce his name. I think he's a really good player. He's an Arizona guy, trained with the same quarterback coach that I trained with back in high school. So he's obviously going to be really good, being an Arizona guy. So
yeah, obviously.
I don't know much else about Washington's team, but I like their quarterback a lot. I love their stadium.
You've been all over it tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least I feel something different from you guys.
That is true. Tyler and I have been pretty much the exact same the entire way down, besides disappointing team.
I mean, but I think it all makes sense. And then for this pick, Nebraska, I've hit it on already. Their schedule sets up year 3 of Matt Rule, looking for Wyola to take a big step. I mean, it all just makes sense. So I feel like Nebraska is going to be up there for one of the surprise teams. All
right, I'm going to change my answer then. I'm going to call an audible here because we are getting too predictable. Yes, I think Nebraska is going to be good, but I think my surprise team is going to be Iowa this year. I still do think Nebraska could crack into the college football playoff, but when we did the Iowa podcast, I think they're starting to modernize a touch on the offensive side of the ball. They brought in a quarterback who, if he hits, I could see them, and their schedule lines up to where they get Penn State and Oregon at home. Not an easy place to play. I do think they could be a team that climbs to a 9-10 win type season, depending on if things break well for them and if that offense goes well. So I'm going Iowa here. Again, with the middle of the Big Ten, it's so hard forecasting because there was so many times like Minnesota we talked about, Iowa we talked about, Nebraska we talked about, that you look at their schedule and you say they could win 9 or 10 games, or you could see them at 5 or 6. And Iowa's one of those teams that I'd throw right in the lump there. And I still can't believe when we were going over the record, they went 8-4 last year and looked as bad as they did in some of those games. All right. Final segment of the day. We got the worst team in the Big Ten. Who's bringing up the basement? And this one is a clean sweep across the board.
Purdue. They have the 17th hardest strength of schedule in the entire country, just to add on to that. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know their quarterback. I don't know who their coach is right now. I don't know much about Purdue, and I don't think that's a good thing whatsoever.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna really stink. Their schedule doesn't do them any favors. It's gonna be a bleak year for the Boilermakers.
Their coach is Barry Odom. He was at UNLV last year. They brought in 80 transfers, 80. So about 3/4 of their roster they turned over from last year, which could be a good thing because they were god awful last year too. I think it's going to be Purdue. I mean, transfer portal variance is real. I mean, it could be that they just upgraded that much with coach and roster. You saw it a lot with Signetti and moving over from JMU and bringing over a lot of JMU guys. But the schedule on top of that, they got to play Notre Dame in the non-con, and they're going to struggle a lot. So I don't think that
all those players, even the majority of those players that they brought in are good, solid players. for it to work out and for them to all mesh first year, that's going to be tough.
Yes, especially at that number of people. So that about does it for us. Is there anything else Big Ten wise that you guys wanted to throw out there on the teams or even Michigan State? Because we're wrapping up here and we're getting right into Western Michigan. I believe we're going to do that Wednesday night.
Wednesday?
Yep.
Go with that.
We will tweet out information about our live stream, and I promise this will not go as well. Fingers crossed, will not go as abruptly as our Indiana live stream podcast tried to go when we were doing that last year, or as poorly with the result that was. But we're really excited to get into the season. I mean, Michigan State, we've been forecasting it. It's just football season. It's Michigan State football. It's everything that you love about this time of the year. It's even been like 70 degrees. I don't think today.
It's even football weather up there in Michigan right now.
Oh, man. I mean, when we played golf, there was dew on the ground.
That was like, nice, yeah.
It was 60 degrees.
A light quarter zip when we started.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is that time of the year. So we will be back with the Western Michigan preview podcast. Please tune in. We'll tweet out information about when that will go live. And please get in the chat. We'd love to interact with you guys and talk a little ball. And it is football season. We're here. Week 1 upcoming. Go Green.